In Charlotte's exclusive bridal district, a perfectionist marketing executive was about to discover betrayal's true price. What started as a final dress fitting took a shocking turn when she came face to face with her sister's desperate theft. Zara Blackwell-Torres wasn't your typical bride. For 28 years, she had lived in her charismatic sister's shadow, known for her relentless need for validation. When Ivy stole her wedding dress, Zara had no idea she was walking into a family war. Her calculated courthouse revenge would lead to destroyed custody rights and two sisters learning that sometimes the cruelest enemy shares your DNA. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The afternoon light streaming through the boutique's crystal windows caught every sequin, every delicate pearl, every intricate thread of French lace as if the dress itself was breathing. Zara Blackwell stood before the three-way mirror, her reflection multiplied into infinity, a kaleidoscope of ivory, silk, and dreams finally made manifest. "Oh my God, Zara." The words escaped her lips in a whisper, her fingers barely grazing the bodice. 6 months of fittings, alterations, and anxious phone calls had led to this moment. The dress wasn't just perfect, it was transcendent. Behind her, Vivian Blackwell adjusted her designer reading glasses, the gesture practiced from decades of critiquing her daughter's appearances. "The waistline still looks a bit loose, don't you think? Maria, can we take it in another quarter inch?" "Actually, Mrs. Blackwell," Maria, the seamstress, said with gentle authority, "the fit is exactly what we discussed. Any tighter and it won't be comfortable for the ceremony." Zara caught her mother's eye in the mirror. There it was, that familiar flicker of disappointment, so subtle that most people would miss it. But Zara had been cataloging those micro-expressions her entire 28 years. "I think it's perfect," Zara said, her voice carrying more conviction than she felt. "It's exactly what I envisioned." Ivy shifted in the velvet armchair, positioned strategically in the corner, her phone buzzing insistently against her Hermes clutch. She'd been unusually quiet during the fitting, which should have been Zara's first warning. Ivy Blackwell-Kingston was never quiet when attention was being lavished on someone else. "It really is stunning," Ivy finally offered, though her smile seemed to require significant effort. "Very bridal." The way she said bridal made it sound like a limitation rather than a compliment. Zara studied her sister's reflection, noting the tension around Ivy's eyes, the way her fingers kept worrying the edge of her clutch. Even at 31, Ivy possessed the kind of effortless beauty that made people turn their heads on the street. Today, though, something was different. The careful makeup couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes, and her usually immaculate blonde hair seemed to lack its typical luster. "Everything okay?" Zara asked, though part of her dreaded the answer. In their family, Ivy's problems had a way of consuming all available oxygen in the room. Ivy's phone buzzed again. This time she glanced at the screen and her face went pale. "Excuse me," she murmured, stepping toward the boutique's entrance. Through the glass, Zara watched her sister pace in tight circles on the sidewalk, her free hand gesticulating wildly as she spoke in urgent, clipped tones. Whatever conversation she was having, it wasn't going well. "She's been under such stress. That man has made her life absolute hell. The things Tristan is putting her through in this divorce, it's unconscionable." Zara felt the familiar knot form in her stomach. "Mom, can we please—" "The custody battle alone is costing her $40,000, and that's just for the lawyers." $40,000, Zara! Can you imagine? And now he's claiming she's an unfit mother because she had that one incident with Luna's school pickup? She was 3 hours late because she was at a spa appointment. She needed that spa day. The stress she's under would break a lesser woman. You have no idea what it's like to have your child's future hanging in the balance. Maria cleared her throat diplomatically. "Should we finish the final adjustments? I have another appointment at 4. Zara nodded gratefully, lifting her arms as Maria made tiny marks with chalk. In the mirror, she could see Ivy still pacing outside, her conversation growing more animated. Through the glass, fragments of angry words drifted in, like, "Told you I need more time," and "not asking for much." The dress suddenly felt heavier, less like a dream and more like a costume she was trying on for a role she wasn't sure she could play. This was supposed to be her moment, 3 days before her wedding, finally trying on the dress that would make her feel like the beautiful, chosen one for the first time in her life. "You know," Vivian continued, settling back into her chair, "when I married your father, I felt so secure, so certain that I was making the right choice. Of course, that was before I learned what kind of man he really was." "Mom," the word came out sharper than Zara intended, "could we maybe not do this today? Talk about Dad leaving, talk about Ivy's problems. Just, could this be about the dress, about the wedding? Just for today?" For a moment, the boutique fell silent, except for the soft scratch of Maria's chalk against silk. Vivian's mouth opened slightly, then closed, as if she'd never considered that her younger daughter might want a moment without her sister's drama taking center stage.
"Of course, darling," Vivian said finally, though her tone suggested Zara was being unreasonably sensitive. "I just worry about you both so much. Family is everything, you know? Everything else in life can disappoint you, but family." The boutique door chimed as Ivy returned, her face flushed and her hands trembling slightly. "Sorry about that," she said, dropping her phone back into her clutch with more force than necessary. "Everything all right?" Zara asked again, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want the answer. "Fine," Ivy said, the word clipped and final. "Just lawyer stuff, nothing that can't wait." But Zara could see it wasn't fine. Ivy's jaw was set in that particular way that meant she was barely holding herself together, the same expression she'd worn the day their father moved out when they were teenagers. Maria stepped back, surveying her work. "I think we're finished," she announced. "The dress will be ready for pickup Friday morning." "Friday," Zara repeated, the word carrying the weight of everything she'd been working toward. Friday morning, she'd pick up this dress. Saturday morning, she'd put it on to become Mrs. Diego Torres. Saturday evening, she'd finally have the wedding photos where she was the radiant center of attention, instead of standing slightly behind Ivy, the perpetual supporting actress in her own family's story. As Maria helped her out of the dress, handling each layer with reverent care, Zara caught sight of Ivy in the mirror again. Her sister was staring at the dress with an expression Zara couldn't quite read. Longing, maybe? Or regret? Or something darker? "It really is beautiful," Ivy said softly, almost to herself. "You'll look perfect." There was something in her tone that made Zara pause, one arm halfway out of the sleeve. "Ivy?" But her sister had already turned away, gathering her purse and checking her phone again. 20 minutes later, as they stood outside the boutique waiting for Diego to arrive, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone street. Ivy's phone had buzzed twice more, each time causing her to flinch as if she'd been slapped. "Zara!" Diego's voice carried across the street as he jogged toward them, his architect's portfolio slung over one shoulder and that easy smile that had first made her fall in love with him lighting up his face. Even after 3 years together, the sight of him still made something warm unfurl in her chest. "How's my beautiful bride-to-be?" he asked, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like coffee and possibilities. "Perfect," she said, and for a moment, wrapped in his arms, she actually felt it. "The dress is absolutely perfect. I can't wait to see you in it, though I'm pretty sure you'd look perfect in anything." It was such a Diego thing to say, genuine, uncomplicated, supportive. None of the careful calculation or competitive edge that seemed to underpin every interaction in her family. "Diego, darling," Vivian said, air-kissing his cheek, "how's the new project coming along?" "Really well, Mrs. Blackwell. We broke ground yesterday, actually. It's going to be beautiful when it's finished. Zara watched Ivy during this exchange, noting how her sister's smile never quite reached her eyes, how she kept checking her phone even while Diego spoke. There was a manic energy radiating from her, the kind of barely contained desperation that Zara recognized from their teenage years when Ivy would spiral over some perceived slight or social disappointment. "We should get going," Diego said, his arm settling naturally around Zara's waist. "Dinner reservations at 7. As they walked toward Diego's car, Zara felt Ivy's gaze following them. When she turned back for a final wave, she saw her sister standing alone on the sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear again, her mouth moving in what looked like urgent pleas. "Everything okay with Ivy?" Diego asked quietly as he held the passenger door open. "I don't know," Zara admitted. "She's been weird all day, distracted." "Divorce stuff?" "Maybe. Probably." She slid into the seat, then paused. "Diego, am I a terrible person for not wanting to deal with her drama right now? For just wanting this week to be about us?" He leaned down, his hand warm on her cheek. "You're allowed to want your wedding week to be special. That doesn't make you terrible. It makes you human." As they drove away, Zara caught a glimpse of Ivy in the side mirror, still standing on the sidewalk, still talking on her phone. Even from a distance, she could see the defeat in her sister's posture, the way her shoulders had crumpled inward. A text notification chimed from Ivy's phone just as the car turned the corner, and though Zara couldn't see it, she somehow knew that whatever message had just arrived would change everything. The dress hanging in the boutique, her perfect dress, her moment of triumph, suddenly felt very far away. But as Diego reached over to take her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her skin, Zara pushed the feeling aside. This was her time, her wedding, her chance to finally be the star of her own story. She had no idea that Ivy was already planning to steal that chance away. The text from Tristan's lawyer burned in Ivy's mind as she sat in her BMW outside Zara's apartment building. "Final custody hearing moved to Monday. Your appearance and demeanor will be critical. Any sign of instability will result in supervised visits only." Monday. 3 days away. The same day as Zara's wedding. Ivy's hands trembled as she turned off the engine. Through the lit windows of the ground floor unit, she could see shadows moving. Zara and Diego getting ready for their rehearsal dinner. Her sister's life proceeding exactly as planned, while Ivy's world crumbled. The spare key felt foreign in her fingers, though she'd had it for years. For emergencies, Zara had said when she'd given it to her. Well, this was an emergency, wasn't it? The apartment was dark, smelling faintly of the lavender candles Zara loved. Ivy moved through it like a ghost, muscle memory guiding her to the bedroom where the garment bag hung on the closet door like a white flag of surrender. Her fingers found the zipper. The dress spilled out in a cascade of silk and dreams, more beautiful than it had looked in the boutique. Ivy held it against herself, catching her reflection in Zara's full-length mirror. For a moment, she was 17 again, trying on her prom dress while their mother fussed over every detail. "You look like a princess, my beautiful princess." When had that stopped? When had she become the daughter who needed fixing instead of the one who was perfect? The dress fit perfectly. Of course it did. They'd always been the same size, though Zara was too polite to mention it. In the mirror, Ivy saw herself as she used to be, radiant, confident, worthy of beautiful things. "I deserve this more than she does," the thought came unbidden. She's had everything handed to her, a career, a man who actually loves her, a future that isn't falling apart. Her phone buzzed, another text from Tristan's lawyer. "Documentation suggests pattern of irresponsible behavior. Judge Harper is known for her strict standards regarding maternal fitness." Judge Harper, the woman who would decide Luna's future based on how responsible Ivy appeared, how
stable, how worthy of being a mother. Ivy's hands shook as she carefully folded the dress into her bag. She pulled out a piece of paper and wrote quickly. Zara, you've always had everything. Career success, mom's quiet pride, a man who sees you as perfect. I've lost my marriage, my home, and now I'm going to lose my daughter. I need this dress more than you do. For once, let me have something beautiful. She placed the note where the dress had hung, then slipped out into the night. Only when she reached her car did the magnitude of what she'd done hit her. She'd stolen her sister's wedding dress, the night before her wedding. But as another text arrived, custody evaluation scheduled for 9 a.m. Monday, she started the engine and drove away. Luna's future was worth more than Zara's perfect day. Some battles were too important to fight fair. Zara's laughter still echoed in the hallway as she and Diego climbed the stairs to her apartment. Her cheeks flushed from wine and the warmth of being surrounded by people who genuinely loved them. The rehearsal dinner had been perfect, intimate, joyful, everything she'd dreamed of. I can't believe we're getting married tomorrow, she whispered, fumbling with her keys. Best decision I ever made, Diego murmured, kissing her neck as she opened the door. The apartment felt different somehow, though Zara couldn't pinpoint why. A subtle shift in the air, shadows that seemed wrong. Diego headed straight for the kitchen, but something pulled her toward the bedroom. The empty garment bag hung limp on the closet door, like a deflated balloon. No, the word escaped as barely a breath. Her hands flew to the bag, unzipping it frantically, as if the dress might somehow materialize. No! No, no, no! Zara, what's wrong? Diego's voice carried from the kitchen, casual, unsuspecting. She found Ivy's note crumpled on the floor where it had fallen. Each word hit like a physical blow. You've always had everything. I need this dress more than you do. For once, let me have something beautiful. Diego! The scream tore from her throat, primal and raw. He appeared in the doorway within seconds, his face shifting from confusion to alarm as he took in the scene, the empty bag, Zara clutching the note, her face white with shock. What happened? Where's the dress? Zara couldn't speak. She handed him the note with shaking fingers and watched his expression darken as he read. She stole it, Zara whispered. Ivy stole my wedding dress. The words seemed to break something fundamental inside her. The careful composure she'd maintained her entire life, the people-pleasing smile, the endless accommodation of her sister's drama, it all cracked open like an egg hitting concrete. That selfish, entitled bitch! The profanity felt foreign on her tongue, but liberating. She thinks I've had everything handed to me. I've worked for every single thing I have while she coasted on being pretty.
Diego reached for her, but she pulled away, pacing the small bedroom like a caged animal. We can fix this, he said gently. We'll find another dress. No! Zara spun to face him, and he stepped back at the fury in her eyes. You don't understand. This isn't about a dress. This is about her taking the one day that was supposed to be mine. For the first time in their relationship, Diego looked at his fiancée and didn't recognize the woman standing before him. The transformation was complete and terrifying. I know exactly how to hurt her back, Zara said, her voice turning cold and calculating, and I'm going to destroy her. The wedding was postponed, but the war had just begun. Zara's laptop screen glowed in the pre-dawn darkness, casting blue shadows across her face as she scrolled through family court records with the methodical precision she usually reserved for marketing campaigns. Diego slept fitfully beside her, occasionally reaching across the bed,
only to find empty space. She'd been at this for 6 hours, 6 hours of diving deep into the mechanics of custody battles, learning the language of parental fitness evaluations, discovering just how much appearances mattered in Judge Rosalind Harper's courtroom. Harper, Rosalind J., known for strict adherence to protocol, zero tolerance for unprofessional behavior. Recent ruling: the court expects all parties to demonstrate the highest standards of responsibility and decorum. Perfect. Zara's laptop phone buzzed with a text from her maid of honor. "So sorry about postponing. Whatever you need, I'm here." She deleted it without responding. The last thing she needed was sympathy. What she needed was information, and her marketing background had taught her that information was power. Another browser tab revealed Ivy's social media. Carefully curated photos of Luna, inspirational quotes about resilience, and strategic posts designed to show her as a devoted mother. But Zara could read between the lines. The timestamps revealed erratic posting patterns. The photos showed increasing reliance on filters and careful angles. The desperation was there if you knew how to look. 20 miles across town, Ivy stood in her lawyer's office wearing Zara's stolen dress, feeling powerful for the first time in months. The silk hung perfectly on her frame, transforming her from desperate divorcee back into the woman who'd commanded every room she entered. "You look confident," her lawyer Patricia Wells noted approvingly. "That's exactly what we need from Monday's hearing." "I feel confident," Ivy lied smoothly. The dress was like armor, protection against Tristan's attempts to paint her as unstable. Luna needs her mother. About that, Patricia's expression grew serious. Tristan's team filed additional documentation yesterday, photos from that incident at Luna's school when you were delayed. Ivy's hand instinctively smoothed the dress's fabric. "I explained that. I had a migraine." "The spa receipt says otherwise." The words hit like ice water, but Ivy forced her smile to hold. "Everyone deserves self-care, Patricia, even mothers." Meanwhile, Zara had found what she was looking for buried in court filings. The Monday hearing schedule, 9 a.m. sharp, Judge Harper presiding. And according to her research, Harper had recently made headlines for denying custody to a woman who'd shown up to court in what the judge deemed inappropriate attire. Zara's fingers flew across the keyboard, cross-referencing Ivy's social media with public records, building a psychological profile that would make her marketing director proud. Ivy's tells were all there: the increasing reliance on external validation, the desperate need to maintain appearances, the way she'd always crumbled when her image was threatened. "What are you doing?" Diego's voice, thick with sleep and concern. She didn't look up from the screen. "Research?" "Zara, this isn't healthy. Maybe we should—" "Did you know Judge Harper denied custody to a woman last month because she wore jeans to court?" Zara's voice was clinically detached, said it showed disrespect for the proceedings and poor judgment. Diego sat up, fully awake now. "What does that have to do with—" His face went pale as understanding dawned. "No! Zara, no!" She finally turned to look at him, her eyes bright with cold purpose. "Ivy's counting on looking perfect in court Monday. Professional, put together, responsible." "You can't be serious." Zara's smile was sharp as could cut glass. "She stole my wedding dress, so I'm going to steal her outfit for court. Let's see how responsible she looks in front of Judge Harper, wearing yesterday's clothes." For the first time in their relationship, Diego looked at his fiancée and felt afraid. Zara stood outside the Mecklenburg County Courthouse at 8:45 a.m., adjusting the sleeves of Ivy's navy Armani blazer. The designer suit fit her perfectly, another painful reminder of how interchangeable they'd always been in their mother's eyes. But today, that sameness would be Ivy's downfall. She'd broken into Ivy's apartment just as methodically as Ivy had broken into hers, using the spare key their mother had given her years ago for emergencies. The irony wasn't lost on her. Through the glass doors, she spotted Ivy pacing in the lobby, phone pressed to her ear, wearing jeans and a wrinkled blouse, clearly whatever she'd thrown on when she discovered her court outfit missing. Even from a distance, Zara could see the panic in her sister's movements. "Zara?" The voice behind her made her turn. Judge Rosalind Harper stood on the courthouse steps, coffee in hand, her expression shifting from pleasant recognition to confused concern as she took in the designer suit. "I thought you had a wedding this weekend." "Postponed. Family emergency." Judge Harper's eyes narrowed slightly. Something in Zara's tone seemed to trigger her judicial instincts. "I see. Well, I hope everything works out." As the judge disappeared into the building, Zara felt a flicker of unease. But it was too late to turn back now. She entered the courthouse lobby just as Ivy spotted her. The recognition hit Ivy's face like a physical blow. Her phone clattered to the marble floor as she stared at Zara wearing her carefully chosen court ensemble, the outfit that was supposed to convince Judge Harper she was a responsible, put-together mother. "You!" Ivy breathed, her voice carrying across the lobby. "You absolute bitch!" Heads turned. Security guards looked up from their stations. Lawyers paused mid-conversation. "I learned from the best." Zara replied with that same cold calculation that had terrified Diego. Ivy strode across the lobby, her face flushed with fury. "How could you? This is about my daughter, Zara. My daughter! Like my wedding dress was about my wedding." Zara's smile was razor sharp. "You said you needed something beautiful. Well, I needed to look professional today." "For what? You don't even have court today." "Don't I? I thought I'd sit in on your hearing, show support for family. Judge Harper seemed so interested in our situation." The color drained from Ivy's face as understanding dawned. "You talked to the judge. What did you tell her?" "Nothing she won't figure out for herself when she sees how you handle pressure." Ivy lunged forward, her hands reaching for the blazer. "Give me my clothes back!" Zara stepped aside smoothly, and Ivy stumbled, catching herself against a marble pillar. The scene was drawing attention now. Whispered conversations, pointed stares, the kind of public spectacle that Judge Harper's courtroom specifically prohibited. "Ladies," a security guard approached, his voice carrying warning, "you need to keep it down or take this outside." "She stole my clothes!" Ivy's voice cracked with desperation. "I have a custody hearing in 10 minutes, and she stole my outfit." "Ma'am, you're going to need to lower your voice." But Ivy was beyond hearing. 3 days of mounting pressure, the humiliation of losing her wedding dress, and now this final blow had broken something fundamental inside her. "You want to destroy me? Fine. But Luna will know exactly what kind of aunt she has. She'll know you cared more about revenge than—" "Miss Kingston." Judge Harper's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. She stood at the top of the courthouse stairs, her expression thunderous. "My chambers, now. Both of you." As they climbed the stairs, Ivy in her wrinkled clothes, Zara in the stolen suit that now felt like a costume from someone else's nightmare, neither sister realized they'd just destroyed each other completely. Judge Harper's chambers felt like a tomb. The mahogany walls seemed to absorb sound, making even breathing feel too loud. Ivy sat rigidly in her chair, mascara streaked down her cheeks, while Zara maintained her composure in the stolen suit that now felt like a costume from someone else's nightmare. "In 30 years on the bench," Judge Harper began, her voice deadly quiet, "I have never witnessed such unprofessional, vindictive behavior from family members during custody proceedings." Her gaze moved between the sisters like a laser. "Miss Kingston, your conduct today raises serious questions about your emotional stability and judgment." Ivy's hands trembled in her lap. "Your Honor, I can explain." "Can you explain why you're screaming accusations of theft in my courthouse lobby? Can you explain this pattern of dramatic outbursts that, according to the documentation before me, extends to your daughter's school functions?" "She took my clothes." Ivy's voice cracked with desperation. "And you, Miss Blackwell, what exactly is your role in these proceedings?"
Zara felt the weight of the judge's scrutiny and realized with crystalline clarity that she'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. I don't have one, Your Honor. Yet you're here, wearing what your sister claims are her clothes, inserting yourself into a custody dispute involving a 6-year-old child. Judge Harper's voice could have frozen hell. Both of you have demonstrated a level of selfishness and vindictiveness that makes me question your fitness to be around any child, let alone have custody of one. The words hit Ivy like physical blows. Please, Your Honor, Luna is everything to me. I'm not usually like this. It's just been such a difficult time, and your sister isn't on trial here, Miss Kingston. You are. And what I've witnessed today suggests someone whose priorities are dangerously skewed. An hour later, Ivy stumbled out of the courthouse into the harsh afternoon sunlight, her world in ruins. Judge Harper had granted Tristan temporary full custody pending a psychological evaluation that wouldn't happen for weeks without Luna. Her phone buzzed with a text from her daughter. "Daddy says I can't see you for a while. Did I do something wrong?" Ivy's knees buckled. She made it to a bench before collapsing completely, the sobs coming in waves that shook her entire body.
Meanwhile, Zara sat in her car in the parking lot, staring at her phone. 17 missed calls from Diego, 23 unread texts. The latest one cut through her like a blade. Carmen's right. I don't know who you've become, but it's not someone I can marry. We need to talk when you're ready to be honest about what you've done. Carmen Torres. Diego's mother had seen through her, had somehow understood what Zara was too proud to admit, that her revenge had cost an innocent child her mother. Zara's hands shook as she started to dial Ivy's number, then stopped. What could she possibly say? That she was sorry? That she hadn't meant for it to go this far? But she had meant it. Every calculated move, every stolen moment of Ivy's dignity, every step of this elaborate revenge. She'd planned it all. Her phone rang. Vivian's name flashed on the screen. "What have you done?" Her mother's voice was raw with disbelief. "Luna is asking why her mommy isn't coming to get her. Do you understand what you've accomplished, Zara? You've destroyed your sister and traumatized a child." For the first time since finding the empty dress bag, Zara felt the full weight of her actions crash down on her. She'd won. Ivy was devastated, humiliated, separated from her daughter. So why did victory taste like ashes in her mouth? Ivy's childhood bedroom looked exactly the same as it had 15 years ago. Lavender walls, trophies from pageants she'd won, photos of herself crowned prom queen. The reminders of who she used to be felt like mockery now. She lay curled on the twin bed, still wearing the wrinkled clothes from court, staring at Luna's drawing of their family taped to the mirror. In the crayon sketch, they were all smiling, holding hands under a rainbow. The irony was suffocating. Downstairs, she could hear Vivian moving around the kitchen, making the chamomile tea that had been her cure-all for every crisis since Ivy was small. But no amount of tea could fix this. Her phone lay silent on the nightstand. No calls from Luna. Tristan had made sure of that. The custody order was clear. No contact until the psychological evaluation. The woman who'd once commanded attention by simply walking into a room was now deemed unfit to speak to her own daughter. "Ivy?" Vivian appeared in the doorway, carrying a steaming mug. "You need to eat something." "I need my daughter." The words came out broken, barely audible. Vivian sat on the edge of the bed, her perfectly manicured hand stroking Ivy's unwashed hair. "I know, sweetheart, but maybe this is a chance to get better, to figure out what went wrong." "What went wrong?" Ivy sat up, her voice gaining strength with anger. "Zara sabotaged me. She deliberately—" "You stole her wedding dress." The quiet words hung in the air like a slap. Ivy stared at her mother, waiting for the usual defense, the explanation of why Ivy's actions were justified. It didn't come. "I was desperate." So was she. Vivian's voice carried a weight Ivy had never heard before. Desperate for one day to be the center of attention. Desperate to matter as much as you always have.
Across town, Zara sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by the detritus of her canceled wedding. Centerpieces wilted on the counter. Her honeymoon luggage stood packed by the door. Diego's engagement ring sat on the coffee table. He'd left it there when he walked out that morning, his eyes full of disappointment and something worse. Disgust. "I don't know who you are anymore, and I don't think you do either." The words echoed in the silence. She'd called in sick for work, something she'd never done without genuine illness. But what could she tell her colleagues? That she'd orchestrated her sister's custody loss? That she'd chosen revenge over her niece's welfare? Her laptop screen glowed with unanswered emails about wedding vendors, each one a reminder of the life she'd destroyed in pursuit of what? Validation? Victory? A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Carmen Torres stood in the hallway, her expression unreadable. "May I come in?" Zara stepped aside wordlessly. Carmen surveyed the apartment, the scattered wedding favors, the crumpled tissues, the general air of devastation. "Diego asked me to come," Carmen said, settling on the couch. "Not to fix this, to help you understand what you've broken. I know what I've done." "Do you?" Carmen's voice was gentle but unforgiving. "Because a little girl called our house yesterday. She'd somehow gotten our number and wanted to know if Uncle Diego knew why her mommy couldn't see her anymore." The words hit Zara like physical blows. "Luna called you?" A 6-year-old child trying to understand why the adults in her life are more interested in hurting each other than protecting her? Carmen leaned forward. "You and Ivy have been at war so long, you forgot there was an innocent person caught in the crossfire." Zara's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. The sobs came from somewhere deep and raw, the sound of someone confronting the true cost of their choices for the first time. "What have I done? What have I become?" Carmen handed her a tissue. "Someone who needs to decide what matters more, being right or being family." Ivy's childhood bedroom looked exactly the same as it had 15 years ago. Lavender walls, trophies from pageants she'd won, photos of herself crowned prom queen. The reminders of who she used to be felt like mockery now. She lay curled on the twin bed, still wearing the wrinkled clothes from court, staring at Luna's drawing of their family taped to the mirror. In the crayon sketch, they were all smiling, holding hands under a rainbow. The irony was suffocating. Downstairs, she could hear Vivian moving around the kitchen, making the chamomile tea that had been her cure-all for every crisis since Ivy was small. But no amount of tea could fix this. Her phone lay silent on the nightstand, no calls from Luna. Tristan had made sure of that. The custody order was clear: no contact until the psychological evaluation. The woman who'd once commanded attention simply by walking into a room was now deemed unfit to speak to her own daughter. "Ivy?" Vivian appeared in the doorway, carrying a steaming mug. "You need to eat something." "I need my daughter." The words came out broken, barely audible. Vivian sat on the edge of the bed, her perfectly manicured hand stroking Ivy's unwashed hair. "I know, sweetheart, but maybe this is a chance to get better, to figure out what went wrong." "What went wrong?" Ivy sat up, her voice gaining strength with anger. "Zara sabotaged me. She deliberately." "You stole her wedding dress." The quiet words hung in the air like a slap. Ivy stared at her mother, waiting for the usual defense, the explanation of why Ivy's actions were justified. It didn't come. "I was desperate. So was she. Desperate for one day to be the center of attention. Desperate to matter as much as you always have." Across town, Zara sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by the detritus of her canceled wedding. Centerpieces wilted on the counter, her honeymoon luggage stood packed by the door. Diego's engagement ring sat on the coffee table. He'd left it there when he walked out that morning, his eyes full of disappointment and something worse: disgust. "I don't know who you are anymore, and I don't think you do either."
The words echoed in the silence. She'd called in sick to work, something she'd never done without genuine illness. But what could she tell her colleagues? That she'd orchestrated her sister's custody loss? That she'd chosen revenge over her niece's welfare? Her laptop screen glowed with unanswered emails about wedding vendors, each one a reminder of the life she'd destroyed in pursuit of, what? Validation? Victory? A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Carmen Torres stood in the hallway, her expression unreadable. "May I come in?" Zara stepped aside wordlessly. Carmen surveyed the apartment, the scattered wedding favors, the crumpled tissues, the general air of devastation. "Diego asked me to come," Carmen said, settling onto the couch. "Not to fix this, to help you understand what you've broken." "I know what I've done." "Do you?" Carmen's voice was gentle, but unforgiving. "A little girl called our house yesterday. She'd somehow gotten our number and wanted to know if Uncle Diego knew why her mommy couldn't see her anymore." The words hit Zara like physical blows. "Luna called you?" A 6-year-old child trying to understand why the adults in her life are more interested in hurting each other than protecting her. Carmen leaned forward. "You and Ivy have been at war so long, you forgot there was an innocent person caught in the crossfire." Zara's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. The sobs came from somewhere deep and raw, the sound of someone confronting the true cost of their choices for the first time. "What have I done?" she whispered between tears. "Someone who needs to decide what matters more, being right or being family." 6 months later, Dr. Sarah Chen's office had become familiar territory for the Blackwell women. The soft lighting and carefully chosen artwork couldn't hide the tension that still crackled between Ivy and Zara, but it was different now, less explosive, more carefully contained. "How did the coffee meeting go this week?" Dr. Chen asked, looking between the sisters. Zara shifted in her chair. "We lasted 45 minutes before the incident." "What incident?" Vivian leaned forward from her corner chair. Family therapy had taught her to listen more and react less, though old habits died hard. "I mentioned Luna's art class," Ivy said quietly, "and Zara suggested I was being permissive about her discipline, like I was with everything else." "That's not what I said. It's what you implied." Dr. Chen held up a hand. "What did you do after that comment, Ivy?" "I wanted to leave, to storm out like I always do. But I stayed. I told Zara that hurt my feelings and asked her to explain what she meant." "And Zara?" Zara looked uncomfortable. I apologized. I said I was still learning how to express concern without attacking." "It was progress," Dr. Chen noted silently. "Slow, painful progress, but movement nonetheless." The court-mandated therapy had been brutal for all of them. Individual sessions where Ivy confronted her narcissistic tendencies and sense of entitlement, where Zara faced the vindictive nature she'd inherited from years of feeling invisible, where Vivian examined how her own abandonment issues had manifested as emotional manipulation of her daughters. "I have an update about Luna," Ivy said, her voice brightening for the first time in the session. "Judge Harper agreed to supervised visits twice a week." "That's wonderful," Vivian breathed. "How does it feel, seeing her again?"
Ivy's eyes filled with tears. "She's different, more cautious. She asks permission for everything now, even to hug me. Tristan's convinced her that I might disappear again." "But you're building trust back," Zara said quietly. It was the first supportive thing she'd said to her sister in months. "We both are," Ivy replied, meeting her eyes. "Luna asked about you last week. She wanted to know if you were still sad." Zara's throat tightened. "What did you tell her?" "That Aunt Zara is learning how to be happy again. That sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but they can get better." Across town, Diego sat in his own therapy session, working through the whiplash of watching the woman he loved transform into someone unrecognizable, then slowly find her way back. "She's changing," he told Dr. Martinez. "Really changing. But I can't forget what she was capable of when she was angry." "Do you want to rebuild the relationship?" "I love her," Diego said simply. "But love isn't enough anymore. She needs to prove that Luna's welfare matters more than her need to be right. And if she can?" Diego was quiet for a long moment. "Then maybe we can try again. But the wedding is off indefinitely. She needs to figure out who she is when she's not trying to outshine her sister." Back in Dr. Chen's office, the session was winding down with the homework assignments that had become routine. Ivy, continue the supervised visits and practice the communication techniques we discussed. Vivian, I want you to reach out to both daughters equally this week. Not crisis management, just checking in. And Zara? Zara took a deep breath. I know what mine is. I need to write Luna a letter, a real apology, about how my actions affected her. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. And then? Then I ask Ivy if she thinks Luna is ready to hear it. For the first time in 6 months, Ivy smiled at her sister without reservation. "She's been asking about you, Zara. I think she's ready." It wasn't forgiveness yet. It wasn't the relationship they'd once had before everything went wrong. But it was something neither of them had ever really possessed before. Honest communication built on mutual respect rather than competitive desperation. Outside the office, walking to their separate cars, Zara called after her sister. "Zara, same time next week for coffee?" "Yes," Zara replied. "But I'm buying. It's my turn." 1 year later. The bridal boutique looked different in the autumn light, softer somehow, less charged with desperate expectations. Zara stood before the same three-way mirror, but this time the woman reflected back was someone she actually recognized. "This one?" the consultant asked, adjusting the simple A-line dress. No cathedral train this time, no hand-sewn pearls, just clean lines and honest elegance. Zara studied her reflection. "It's perfect." "Really?" Ivy's voice carried genuine surprise from the chair behind her. "You don't want to try the others?" "No, this is the one." Zara turned to face her sister. "What do you think?" It was such a simple question, but it carried the weight of everything they'd rebuilt. A year ago, Zara would never have asked for Ivy's opinion. A year ago, Ivy would have given it anyway, laced with competition and subtle undermining. "I think you look beautiful," Ivy said, and meant it. "Diego is going to cry when he sees you." The small ceremony was planned for next month. 50 guests in Carmen's backyard, Luna as flower girl, no drama, no elaborate productions, just two people who'd learned that love required more than pretty words and good intentions. "There's something else," Zara said, her voice carrying nervous energy. "Diego and I talked, and we want you to do a reading, if you're comfortable with that." Ivy's eyes widened. "Are you sure? I mean, after everything?" "Because of everything," Zara stepped down from the platform, facing her sister directly. "You're my family, the only sister I'll ever have, and Luna needs to see that people can hurt each other and still choose to love." As if summoned by their conversation, Zara's phone buzzed with a text from Luna. "Mommy says you're getting married again. Can I help with flowers?" "She's been practicing her flower girl walk," Ivy said, laughing. "She's very serious about getting it right." The conversation was interrupted by a minor crisis that would have destroyed them both a year ago. As Zara changed back into her street clothes, she heard the unmistakable sound of tearing fabric. "Oh no," the consultant gasped. "The sample dress, there's a tear in the sleeve seam." Ivy was on her feet instantly. "Is it fixable?" "I'm not sure. This was the last one in your size," the consultant told Zara apologetically. "The designer discontinued the style." A year ago, this would have sent Zara into a spiral of perfectionist panic. A year ago, Ivy would have somehow found a way to make it about herself. Instead, they looked at each other and started laughing. "It's just a dress," Zara said, surprising herself with how easily the words came.
"We can find another one," Ivy added, "or we can have this one fixed. There are solutions that don't involve anyone stealing anything." They both dissolved into giggles at that. the absurdity of their past behavior finally something they could acknowledge without shame. Later, sitting in a coffee shop that had become their regular meeting place, they talked about the reading Ivy would give. "I found a poem," Ivy said, pulling out her phone. "It's about second chances, about how love isn't about never falling down, but about choosing to get back up together." Zara nodded, then hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Do you think we'll ever be normal, like other sisters?" Ivy considered this seriously. "I don't think we'll ever be normal. We've hurt each other too much for that. But maybe we can be something better. Sisters who know exactly how much damage we can do and choose not to do it." "That sounds harder than normal." "Much harder," Ivy agreed, "but also more honest." As they prepared to leave, Ivy touched Zara's arm gently. "Thank you for trusting me with the reading, for giving us another chance. Thank you for not stealing this dress," Zara replied with a grin. They hugged goodbye, still careful, still rebuilding, but genuine in their affection. Outside, their separate cars pointed toward different lives, but for the first time in 30 years, they were driving in the same direction. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.